This video is an overview of how AssetAccountant works with Sage Intacct, specifically for use in the UK. AssetAccountant and Sage Intacct work together in three ways. Firstly, when AssetAccountant is implemented with Sage Intacct, the draft assets clearing account is set up, and new fixed assets are coded to this in the Sage Intacct general ledger. AssetAccountant then automatically pulls these through for depreciation treatment. Secondly, AssetAccountant will post journals into Sage Intacct. And finally, the two systems synchronize both your standard and custom dimensions in Sage Intacct. Please note that the content in this video is a high-level overview where we cover the basics of fixed asset depreciation and leasing treatment. For more detailed tutorials and demonstrations, further videos are available on our website.
To start this demonstration, I'm going to create a new draft asset in Sage Intacct. You can do this to bring it into AssetAccountant in a number of ways, either from accounts payable transaction, credit card, or a simple journal entry. It doesn't matter. As soon as the draft asset has hit the general ledger, AssetAccountant will pick it up, as we will see shortly. For the purposes of this demonstration, I will set up a new general journal with a new computer, and I will code that to the draft asset clearing account that we asked you to set up. So let's say I'm going to spend £2,000 on a new draft asset clearing account, and then I'm going to post the other side of that to accounts payable. Once that's created in Intacct, I can submit that, and that journal entry has now been posted to the GL account. So from here, I can flick over into AssetAccountant. I'm looking at my draft asset screen. So this is in the area of the system that pulls through assets from Intacct. So I can just refresh that, and the system will go and have a look at the draft asset account in Intacct and bring through any new items. So you can see here my new computer has been added with today's date and the cost and the reference and so on. Any dimensions that have been set will also be pulled through to AssetAccountant. There's a couple of things you can do here to this asset. So you can add cost if it's an additional cost to an existing asset, or you can ignore it if it's come through in error. I'm going to bring it through as a new asset. So you can see here, I can just say add asset. That will populate these fields for me. I can also just confirm the asset group here is computer, equipment, and so on. Over here on the right-hand side of the screen, you can confirm the tax depreciation methods if you want to use AssetAccountant for that. So these are all the methods prescribed by HMRC. I can move this to the main pool if I want to, and then there's the options to apply full expensing, the AIA as well. And then under accounts here, I can choose either a straight line method or reducing balance, the number of years in the life of the asset and the rate I'd like to use and so on from here. So let's say I'm happy with those, and I can just save those from there. You will see the assets now disappeared from this draft asset screen, and I can use the menu over on the left-hand side to navigate to the main assets section of AssetAccountant. This is the screen that you're likely to do most of your work from. You can see the asset groups listed down the left-hand side, and across the top, the movement in the period that I'm looking at here. There are two navigation buttons on the top right of the screen. Here I can navigate between periods, be they months, quarters. I can look at year to date or also financial years, and also select a custom period if I need to. And then finally up here, the second button will allow me to toggle between the accounts view and the tax view, depending on what I'm working on at the time. So you can see here now the £2,000 that we've added for the computer is showing in the additions column. You can open up the asset group to see the individual assets that make up those numbers. And you can see here that my new computer has been added. So I can click into my new computer. This will show me all the details in relation to that asset. Every asset has its own screen like this. And you can see here there are a number of tabs available with the details. So for tax, this asset's in the main pool, so that is transferred to the main pool there. And for accounts purposes, I've got a reducing balance of 25% a year. So down here, this schedule will then do the calculations over the life of the asset. So all of those depreciation numbers are calculated as soon as you put the information into the system. And that means as soon as a journal is created, it will just pull those numbers from each asset and post them to Intacct, which I'll show shortly. There's a details tab here where You can add what we call classifications. These are the same things as dimensions in Intacct, and we do synchronize with those. You can share assets across dimensions if you need as well. We do also let you have custom fields and attachments, and there's no limit to the number of those that you can add in AssetAccountant. There are some actions you can take to assets, so you can either take them at the individual regime level here. If you want to do them one at a time, you can do them from here, so you can do things like reassessments, revaluations, impairments, and so on. Or if you want to do them in bulk, then you can do those from this bulk actions menu over on the left-hand side, so that you don't have to manage assets one at a time. At an asset level, you can also take a number of actions here. So we support parent-child relationships between assets. If you want to add components, you can have quantities. So if you've got 100 chairs in a record, you can just put the quantity in here. You can also do things like transfer an asset from one group to another or add additional cost in. That's useful for things like work in progress, assets under construction, and so on, or if you want to capitalize any maintenance costs that you might have incurred on any particular asset. And then down here, you can sell or write off an asset if you need to process a sale or a write-off. AssetAccountant also supports leases. So I will just very briefly attach a lease to this record so you can see how that works. What you would do here is just generate the schedule. So let's say I'm just going to finance the purchase of this computer by a lease. So I'll say I'll finance that by $2,000. And let's say I made an initial deposit of £500, and then I'm going to pay, let's say, £1,000 a month for 12 months, and then a final payment of, be reasonable there, let's say £450 there. So I can do that and generate the schedule. That will then calculate the amount of interest in each payment, so you can see the principal is paid off over the life of that asset and then the interest that's charged. So that's included there, and then I can save that. Once I've saved that, you will see that the record here has, as well as the asset with the depreciation, is also showing a lease liability that's created when you first set the lease up, and then that liability is reduced over the life of the lease with the interest shown each month there. And we will also post that information to Intacct via a journal, which I'll show you now. Over on the left-hand side menu here, this is where you can navigate to various items. So if you're using AssetAccountant for tax, you can look at the pools. Then there's also the option to do bulk actions, which I mentioned earlier. So if you bulk disposed of all sorts of assets, you can just upload those in a template, and then that will process all of those in one go rather than having to do them one at a time. Similarly, for things like impairments, reassessments, and revaluations, you can do all of those in bulk, as well as managing leases in bulk. I'm just going to come to the journal section of AssetAccountant now. So you'll see I've already posted my depreciation journal for November. I'm going to now create a second journal to the end of November. And the way AssetAccountant journals work, once you have posted a journal, you can only post journals for the same date and afterwards, and then it will just post the changes. So because I've only added that asset from Intacct and added a lease to it, that's all you'll see in this second journal for November. This will just be a correcting journal because the system has had some new information added to it. And in here, you can see a few things. So I'll just scroll down to the bottom. What you'll see here is the £2,000 that was posted into Intacct into the clearing account. The first item that we'll just run through is in there. So you can see my new computer has been posted to the cost account for computers. So that's set at the asset group level. So this cost account has now been posted to 15,660, and the clearing account is being credited. So that clearing account entry has now been reduced to 0. You can also see that we've started to depreciate the asset. So there's £20.55 has been depreciated there. And then just drawing your attention to the lease information, the interest has been charged for that month. So there's £8.41 of interest that's been charged on the financing arrangements for the purchase of that laptop. And you can see here we've also set up the liabilities, and those are separated out under current liability and non-current liability. And then each month we move non-current liability to current liability where payments are made in less than 12 months' time. So once you've reviewed the journal, you can post it directly to Intacct using the Post to Sage Intacct button up there. So you just choose to set that up, post the journal, and then AssetAccountant will go and create that entry in Intacct. And so your books are now reflecting the latest information in the assets. There's a number of reports that are available here. So you can see for asset reports, we've got 12 reports that are available here as standard. This includes acquisitions, disposal reports. We do forecasts out for periods ranging from 1 to 100 years. There are the disclosures that you need for assets, so the asset group summary, the asset summary, and so on. And then some information comparing the tax and the accounting numbers for audit purposes and so on. And then there's also a number of reports available for leasing as well, depending on the information you need. So there's a comprehensive set of standard reports available with our lease data in it. And then you can also create your own reports from this asset screen here. So if you did need to develop a report with some specific columns in, then you can just do that from the assets section there. So that's a very quick run through of AssetAccountant. We've just shown how you can pull through draft assets from Sage Intacct, process them in AssetAccountant, and then post journal information back to Intacct directly from AssetAccountant, as well as just looking at how the reports are accessed in the system. There are further details available on our website if you're interested in any particular area, or if you would like to see much more detail on the rich functionality that AssetAccountant has to offer.